Okay, so currently, as of today, we are. What is today's date?
April 7th.
April the 6th or the 7th?
7th.
April the 7th, 2021. Where are you in that? Are you on the are you in a hill or are you in a valley?
Oh, I am in the valley enjoying this wonderful feeling of normalcy coming back, because of the vaccination and everybody around me being vaccinated and people coming to my house now. I'm going to restaurants, I'm going to movies. I just feel like life is coming back. It's not like that for everybody, but for me, it feels wonderful. So I'm definitely in the valley.
Well, actually, a valley is the low point. A hill is a high point.
I thought we were talking about the valley of the promised land and the wonderfulness.
You're talking about the Rio Grande Valley.
I'm thinking about the hill where you're climbing and it's a struggle and you're there. So are we at Mount Everest or are we at the base?
Right, exactly.
Okay, well, I'm at Mount Everest right now because I feel great. Like I'm on top of the mountain.
Okay.
And I'm screaming pretty loud.
You're coming up to the pinnacle.
Yeah. Try to be a little more clear on your metaphors,
I'm sorry,
sir.
man. I thought you got hills and valleys.
First off, you're like 60 years younger than me.
Strikes and gutters,
and
dude.
So you got different perspective on life, here. So
yeah.
I just saw the 10 Commandments, so I'm thinking Promised Land, the River of Jordan. I'm crossing.
You're
there.
And the water is parted.
I've made it. I'm there. Hello.
So, you're vaccinated? 100%. So what are you doing now?
Well, I'm getting back to normal in terms of my business. We're having meetings now face to face, and markets are opening up, and capital funding and public funding starting to open up, and I'm feeling bullish about, at least in my world, the construction world. So things are really popping. Things are starting to get more active. I feel like, that we're in that beehive and there's just so much movement and so much good noise going on.
A lot of good buzz.
A lot of activity is really happening right now. So it feels wonderful.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And so every day has just been an exciting day over the last couple of months. Over the last 12 months, before about 60 days ago, maybe 45 days ago, every day was just something like, oh God, what next?
Right.
What shoe's going to drop now? Oh Lord, what's going to happen? I mean, we had projects pausing, funding pausing, late payments, people that we work with on the owner side or the consultant side who got sick, or they were in quarantine, or they had to stop, and this and that. So all that seems to have faded away, and it feels like business is coming back again. So I'm pretty excited about it.
But like there's a lot of positive, there's a lot of positive momentum. People are kind of coming out of the woodwork and doing stuff.
Well, not just in business, but in family. Just personally. I used to be. My wife called me Dr. Fauci. It's just like, be sure to take your gloves, be sure to take your sanitizer, stay away from people. Where you been? You need to go shower. What's going on? Just all that is just gone. I mean, we don't deal with that anymore. I mean, I'm not saying we're dropping our guard, but we're just not as strict and as rigid about all that like we used to be. Now that I'm telling you, my whole inner circle of my life has been vaccinated. So it feels good.
Right.
Where we're having couples over now. We're just things are just getting back to normal.
Are you getting out? Are you going to lunches? Are you going to dinners? Are you starting to do that stuff again?
Absolutely. The only thing that's bothering me now is that I lost weight during the pandemic, and I'm feeling like things are creeping back up a little bit because I'm eating out now as opposed to just every meal was at home, and so everything was regulated: calorie intake, low sodium, low carbs, and all that. Last night we were at El Forno. Today I was at Papados. A couple days ago I was at Coco's, and that was like unheard of in the last 12, 13 months.
And that's when they were like, "Oh, do you want corner flour?" You're like, "Yeah, I'll take flour."
I forgot how big portions were. At our house, portions were like about that big. At those restaurants, they're like that big.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? Because you go back to them, and then you're like, we should have just ordered this one plate. We could have split it.
Exactly. That happened last night at El Forno.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we ordered a pizza. We ordered a caprese salad, and she ordered the chicken parmesan, and we ordered for 7 people. Literally.
Yeah.
We took home enough for 2 days, 3 days worth of, leftovers.
Italian food is always good because I always feel like even if you over order pizza or pasta or whatever, that's like one of those foods that you can reheat and it actually tastes
Except that in our house, I'm living with a vegetarian, almost vegan. My daughter, who has been incredibly wonderful to change our entire diet over the last 9 months.
Oh, that's awesome.
She learned how to cook. I taught her how to cook, and she's become an excellent cook. And so we're kind of 80% are vegetarians at our house.
Oh,
Plant-based this, plant-based that. But every once in a while, we sneak a little bacon. But we don't eat steaks. We don't eat pork. It's mostly chicken and seafood. But every once in a while, we have to sneak a little bacon in.
Okay, yeah, because bacon is the good stuff.
Bacon is the best.
Yeah, you know what? I was actually talking to one of my friends who has who has their child in FFA, Future Farmers of America, and he was talking to me about how his daughter's pig was awesome, but wasn't fatty, because right now most people are looking for those fatty pigs because everybody's into bacon. Bacon's amazing.
Have you ever had a bacon strip and mix it in a scotch?
No. Hector, do we have any?
Don't do it. I'm just kidding.
It sounds awesome,
But
man.
it's almost like bacon can be in anything.
Hey, I heard there's chocolate covered bacon, which
There's
to me
ice cream
sounds
bacon.
like a win-win.
There's a restaurant in Austin called Bacon, downtown. Everything on the menu is bacon.
Has bacon in it?
Everything, from starters to desserts and everything in between.
They need to franchise that.
In fact, in the middle, after you've eaten a little bit to cleanse the palate, it's a bacon sorbet.
Really?
Yes.
Oh man, I gotta try that.
It's crazy.
I gotta try that. That's crazy. All right, so you're in a good spot right now, which is great, because I remember 12 months ago, you weren't going anywhere. I hadn't seen you. You weren't doing anything. There's a lot of stuff that was going on. Was it scary back then?
Yes, on multiple fronts. Well, so on March the 16th is when we moved away from our office, and it's when we started saying, okay, we knew it was coming. I think the governor announced quarantines and shelter in place around the 19th or 20th, and so we asked Nick to come back from school. Christina decided,
Your son Nick.
Yeah, my son Nick, and then my daughter Christina. So we all holed up at the house and stayed there. My mother was in an assisted living facility, and so we were there solidly, never went anywhere. I learned about Instacart. I learned about DoorDash. I learned about everything in terms of bringing to us what we needed. And so we created a really good, solid foundation of staying away and keeping that virus away from us. But the challenge is that not only was I responsible for the family, I was responsible for 25 to 26 families that work for me. And so we had to make a lot of adjustments with our architectural engineering firm. So we still had to work on projects, design and construction support services, etc. So we were juggling about 30 projects, and their families are doing the same thing we're doing,
Right.
trying to keep the virus away. So we're trying to keep the virus away from our employees. And so that whole move of 25 individuals moving to their homes required a tremendous amount of resource gathering, logistics, coordination, etc. And so the first 30 days were interesting, getting comfortable in meeting in teams. So instead of walking up to somebody over the shoulder and sitting down and saying, hey, how's the project coming? Let me see what you got. Now it's teams, Zoom.
Right.
So it took a little while. And then we had to get adjusted to our consultants, and then to our owners, and then to our contractors, and make that work. And then we couldn't travel for a while. All travel was banned, but we had construction sites that we had to be at. So that adjustment took a while. And so, yeah, there were scary moments. And it got really scary, as you know, when things got really bad in June, July, and August, when death was everywhere. It felt like, I just watched Ten Commandments, and they have that green thing coming in, below, where they kill the firstborn of the Egyptians.
Yeah.
It felt like the virus was like that back then. We didn't know anyone who had it. Then we found out somebody who had it. Then we found out a family member who had it. And then, unfortunately, sadly, a family member who passed away. All of us were experiencing that at the company.
Yeah.
And so I had to deal not only with keeping the company going and keeping our clients where their projects weren't pausing, so that we were still keeping the momentum going of construction, but also dealing with the psychological, emotional issue that everybody was dealing with about death, and the fear and paranoia of the virus. So that was crazy. That was some very crazy times, but we got through it. We were able to get through it, and we stuck together as a family. So I'd say that my family grew from 4 to probably 200 over that summer.
Yeah.
And we're still together. And we haven't come back to the office since then.
So how much of an adjustment would you say did it take from doing things the old way to doing things the COVID way? And how has that changed? Like, what are you guys? How do you guys handle business now? How do you plan to do it?
Well, we were fortunate that my partners, Eli specifically, is very visionary, and we were very fortunate that we were already on the cloud, and we were already adapted and had already gotten comfortable with Teams, and all of our work was on the cloud or SharePoint or One or whatever, or Adobe, whatever sharing platforms in the cloud that were available to us to utilize in our construction drawings, in our documentation, and et cetera, et cetera. And so it was easy to move. So when I think it was like March the 5th or 7th thereabouts, it was about maybe 8 days before we actually moved out. I got 2 or 3 of our employees who were real IT smart, and I said, I think we're going to shut down. We're going to have to go home. Let's start ramping up for that. Let's get a complete inventory of everybody's home internet services. Let's find out how many computing devices we can move out of here. What are people going to need at home in terms of a desk, a chair? So we started really getting ready. And so on the 14th, we did a dress rehearsal. And then on the 16th, we moved. So it was pretty easy for us. I felt bad for a lot of companies where it just hit them head on and they weren't prepared. They weren't on the cloud. A lot of architectural engineering firms that we compete with back then, I suspect now they've really got into now this cloud sharing and digital transfer of documents and drawings and things like that. But back then, it's a lot of paper sharing at the office.
Right.
We were digital sharing already by then. So it made the transition to work from home real easy for us, to the degree that we've been so successful at it. We've successfully designed and constructed 7 to 8 projects already. We're juggling about 25 to 30 projects right now, and we still haven't come back to the office. We're working in El Paso, Houston, Austin, Del Rio, and here. And we've decided that we're not going to come back to the office. We're going to develop a hybrid model where we may have a smaller infrastructure than we have today. We've put our office on the market for sale, and probably going to stay more from home remotely than coming back to an office.
Do you think that it has improved the way that you all do business? How so? The communication or
communication efficiencies, being able to have a flexible, adaptable schedule at home. One of the things that keeps us from not moving to the office is that I've got a young staff. And so a lot of the staff have kids that are not in school yet. And they're either learning from home, or they're homeschooling, or they have online, educational platforms or systems from their school districts. So the daycare was not available until recently. And so that was one of the drivers to stay home, was for them. And so it's been pretty easy for them to be able to adapt to that. So I think that if you polled my staff right now, I'd say 85 to 90% of them say, let's stay home, let's not come back.
Yeah.
They're pretty happy about that decision of us we're keeping our options open, and we're not making a hard date. We're going to move in June. We're going to move in July. We're not doing that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some things with COVID that happened that definitely a lot of negativity there, but there were some good positive things that came out of it. And
federal funding availability for small businesses was a great thing. The PPP, the EIDL, on those long-term, low interest loans, all of that
gives you it gave, I think, a business more security than ever. Even for me, like we did the EIDL, we did the PPP and all of that, and it's just a security. It's just a really great security blanket to make sure that you can maintain operations. You don't have to necessarily skip a beat, and you can take care of the people.
Thank you, Uncle Sam.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, honestly, if I'll admit that our revenues were down in 2020. Our fourth quarter was the worst ever, but our first quarter is becoming the best ever. So we had to get through that. But thank God for the federal government, and also I want to acknowledge my good buddy Felix Garcia. He stayed on top of all of the federal government.
Oh, Felix. Yeah.
He's an accountant. He's got, happy returns.
Yeah, happy
Feliz,
returns.
His name is Feliz, and, happy.
Yeah.
And so he was so good in creating a forum with about 25 of us to keep us apprised of what was going on with the federal government about 8 or 9 months ago.
That's awesome.
So he did all the legwork for us and didn't charge us. He typically makes a percentage of what he does for his clients, but for our group, the friends of Felice, excuse me, he coached me in terms of PPP, EIDL, employment retention tax credits, the stimulus bill last year, the stimulus bill this year, and I owe him big time.
Man.
I mean, I love him. I mean, he is going to be my buddy. He's in my will now. He's
you're putting this on the recording, so he's going to be able to be like, "Hey, where's my cut?"
Felix, I'm looking at the camera. I love you dearly. No, but it was just great that and I pray that a lot of the businesses that I love that we used to, be a part of, that we're still going to be a part of. I hope that they took advantage of that they're making it. I heard 17% of all restaurants in the United States didn't make it.
That's sad.
But it seems like McAllen's coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some restaurants, a couple of my favorite ones closed, but they will be back, and I think they'll come back maybe in a different format or different structure. But anyway, lots of lows and highs, and lots of personal reflective, lots of personal learning. I'd never done yoga before until this last several months, and I've been enjoying it, from the house. Never ever thought that I would eat 3 meals a day with my family and actually enjoy it. Never thought my daughter would be this great cook. It's just been great. There's been more highs and lows.
It's nice silver lining.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and so as far as the transition and all of that, it sounds like you guys are progressing into something that is brand new. I think COVID has definitely been one of those things where we didn't know what was going to happen. Things look like they're kind of on the up. We don't know what's really kind of around the corner, but things seem to be kind of on the up. But, for those people that don't know, ERO is an extremely successful architecture firm. And you guys have done some very great things. How did all of that, and how did you get into architecture? Because architecture is not you are a businessman, not an architect, right?
Correct.
So how did you get in? How did you get into this amazing architecture firm?
Well, there's the old saying about there are no coincidences, and there's just nothing but the destiny that's been created for you, or you created yourself. The life that you design is more by design than less by chance. When I was in parochial school, when I was in a Catholic school, and it was the 4th or 5th grade, I would draw buildings, and I would draw structures, and I would draw bridges. And sometimes in the middle of class, like in 4th grade or 5th grade, whenever I was, classroom led by Sister Reginald. That woman I know didn't go to heaven. She was so freaking mean. Anyway,
she was trying so hard, though. It sounds like
I will tell you how mean she was. So I would draw these really incredible structures, these buildings, and I guess I was laying the foundation for what one day I thought maybe I wanted to be an architect. But I didn't really know what architect was because I was maybe 11 or 12. And so I drew some amazing little, I guess, office complex with multiple buildings or something. But I should have been paying attention to history or whatever it was I was doing. I should have been doing that than drawing. So I got caught. So Sister Reginald, I hope you didn't.
God rest her soul.
Hope you didn't go to heaven. At least be in purgatory for a while. She caught me with that drawing, and she got some tape and she taped it to my back, and she made me wear it all day through 2 recesses and lunch. Now, granted, kids can be brutal, and I got picked on, made fun of, joked at. It was humiliating.
Really?
Yeah. And so 2 things happened at the end of that day. First off, I thought maybe I might be an artist because it was pretty cool, pretty badass stuff I was doing. And so forget that, forget pursuing an art career, but more importantly, maybe forget pursuing an architectural career. I wouldn't draw ever again. I never draw it again.
Really?
I didn't. So here we are now. Fast forward, this is 1962, 63 maybe.
A few decades later.
64. Here we are, 2006. After 24 years in television and advertising, after 10 years in technology, and through all that tech boom, in the 90s.
Yeah.
I moved to McAllen, and in 2006 I meet Eli Ochoa. And so by then I was establishing my own little PR marketing firm here when I moved here in '02. And so I'd already done a couple of marketing assignments or community engagement assignments for some engineering firms in the area, because there wasn't a PR firm here. And so somebody introduced me to Eli, and I met him, and we had lunch at the McAllen Country Club. And I was telling him about my approach to marketing, and he told me what he was doing, and he said, I'm really stuck here, and I feel like I need to do something with my company. I mean, we got so many out-of-area companies that are taking over, and I used to be really doing well, and now I'm losing market leadership, market share. What do you think? And I came up with some ideas. I put a proposal together. He loved it, and he hired me as a consultant. And I've been with him since.
Wow.
And so that led to an opportunity to come office with him and sublet some space. And then before I know it, he said, hey, do you want to join me? And he offered me a partnership and an employment opportunity. And I took advantage of that around, I guess, 2010, 2011. And I've been his partner and an owner of the company since then. And so I've learned so much from Eli, and I've learned so much from my partners, and I've learned so much from this practice. And because of that, one of the things I'd learned immediately when I started working with him is that you got to have have to have a good story to tell. You have to be a good storyteller in this business, and you got to be able to captivate an audience in terms of the story you tell. So I learned that architecture, that what we were doing was not just about buildings, it was about impacting communities. And that people who use buildings, these end up being the center of their universes, whether it's a school or whether it's a city hall or whether it's a performing arts center. It becomes the center of a big portion of the community, and it becomes that part of their universe. And then so the second thing I learned was that in the practice of architecture, your practice is built on the iconic buildings that you do, people that remember them. And it's a sense of legacy, and they stay around for a long time, and they remember you for that. Henceforth, the McAllen Performing Arts Center, perfect example. The Dow County Courthouse that we're doing, or a high school, a big, huge high school. So I learned that. And so what really has been amazing is that everything that we've done since then, since I've been involved with this firm, is that we always focus on the impact of that building, small or large, on what it does to individuals, not just experiencing the building, but what it does to them in terms of their community. So our buildings always have some community-based focus in terms of a story, in terms of the design approach, in terms of its use. It always has a story tied to the community. And so we are now, and we believe that we're a community-based firm, that we don't just design buildings, we actually are connecting communities through buildings and the buildings that we do.
Yeah, and that's so true because when you all opened up the Performing Arts Center, I was so lucky when you all did the opening, and you opened it up to the public, that I was talking to Eli.
Were you at the Annie performance? That was the first show.
No, I wasn't invited to that.
Yeah, we
one.
sponsored that one. I actually went up there with the mayor and talked about how wonderful it was, and I actually looked for you, and where the hell is Jerry?
Nope. That was a sold out
1,900
performance.
people here. Does anybody know where Jerry Sanchez was? And you know what the response was in unison?
Well,
he's late again. He'll be here soon.
Yeah, that one you needed to know somebody to get in there, and apparently I just didn't have the relationships to get in there. So
okay, so
I wasn't
love
as privileged.
You dearly, but you're full of shit. I'm sure I got you a ticket, and I'm sure you were out of town or you couldn't make it.
Something happened. But when Eli took me through that Performing Arts Center, the amount of detail that you guys put into that,
it's pretty amazing.
I mean, everything from the mesquite hardwood floors that matched kind of the area, and you all used a lot of the colors. You all used, because there was birding, because this area is very heavily into birding. That color concept was derived from those things, and if you don't really know that, I really kind of feel like there needs to be, you know, some kind of history or some kind of description of what the building means.
Well,
somewhere
it's actually
in there.
memorialized. When each building opens, I make it a point to get an article written, or we write an article that talks about the vision of the building, the vision of the design, the metaphors that were used that connects to the community, those that could be, you know, how we respect the land, the people, or the history. And so those metaphors might be just as simple as, like at the Hidalgo County Courthouse, when you walk from a distance from the north side walking towards the building and you're walking on the sidewalk, you're going to see these little water features that are going to be kind of like they're called something like the eyes of God, where these little water bubbles will be on the side, and that reflects these natural water elements that are along the Rio Grande River. You'll see the wood structure of the porch as you walk in that represents the mesquite. And so the courthouse has 12 metaphors that are tied to the region. The McAllen Performing Arts Center has about 10 to 11.
Wow.
And so Eli has been very good, and our design team here is trying to get, you know, some aspect of the community's history or culture tied into our buildings, either outside or inside. And we have many buildings that represent that. All our high schools, from Houston to El Paso to Seguin and Austin to here, have many aspects. Perfect example, the high school we did in Seguin, it has the exterior and interior has elements of the German-Mexican culture and how it mixed, and you can see certain elements of that. So we do have stories that we've written for historical purposes. The Monitor has been great. Every once in a while they allow us to submit an article, you know, for an op-ed piece or something like that, especially a significant building like the courthouse or the Performing Arts Center that talks about that history.
Yeah, I mean, I think beyond, because you need to make things functional, right? You need to make them make sense for whatever the building is, and then you need to make them cost effective, right, for the client. But then beyond that, you take it a step further and incorporate that type of culture. And when you think about some of these, like tourism, for example, and you think about cities that you want to go visit, typically when you think about like the large cities, there's some type of architectural formation.
The iconic building.
Yeah, that it's like New York, Empire State Building, you know, as the example, or Statue of Liberty, or
The Capitol in D.C.
Yeah, exactly. Like there is a
Your house in Mission.
Totally. Right. Yeah. Those kinds of things where
Can
you're
I
like,
give your address so that people can go see it?
if you want to, because everybody's got the. I'm just kidding. But you know, like those are things that people associate those buildings with, even when you think about skylines and things like that. So I think that's really, when you talk about legacy, that is an amazing thing to be a part of.
Well, you know, and so, but you have to be adapted. You have to be adaptive also, because as important as it was for us to be able to win work by telling a story of how we would approach design and how we would approach that link to culture, lately we've had to shift that story, because now people are looking at how we can save money. And save money is important. So now we focus a lot of our story on constructability. It's being able to design a building that will be either as much as or less than what's budgeted, and that the building will be able to pass permitting as quickly as possible, so that either you can expedite the schedule and come under budget. So that story has to shift now. So talking about the culture and what we're going to do from a design standpoint is a wonderful story to tell, and it can be very effective in terms of that connection with board members or with decision makers. A lot of people now want to hear more about nuts and bolts. Okay, so what are you going to do to be able to save us money? What are you going to do to be able to get the thing done quicker? And more importantly, can you work with the local city and the local jurisdiction entities to help get us permit and get our occupancy permits in faster? So now they want to hear more about that. You know, it's almost like, yeah, we know you can design incredibly. We've seen your work, but tell us how you're going to get in cheaper and faster.
Do you think there's a problem with that?
No, but it's all still part of the story. If you can tell it very effectively and very well, no, I don't think there's a problem with that. I think it's a responsibility for us to be able to do that. Remember, most of the projects, if not all of them in the public sector, have taxpayer implications. You know, taxpayers that were promised by a board member or a court or a commission that they would deliver X, Y, and Z at A, B, and C. No, I think it's a responsibility for us to be able to do that. And so we used to bank on our wonderful Hispanic connection to culture and communities in Texas because we're 100% Hispanic owned.
Mm-hmm.
Still effective, but right now, because of the pandemic, post-pandemic, funds are not there yet. Capital markets haven't shifted that there yet. Communities are still trying to figure out if they're going to get money from Uncle Sam to be able to make up for all the tax losses that they experienced in the last 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to build buildings, they're going to want them as low as possible and still be functional.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and efficient and all of those things, right?
Yeah. So that's one of the byproducts that's come out of the pandemic in my field, is to be able to be competitive and to be able to tell a good, solid story that we can deliver on budget, if not under budget, and that we can deliver faster or at least on schedule, and then tell them how.
Mm-hmm. What do you think is the hardest thing about being in the industry? Like, what is the most challenging thing for you?
People, the skilled people that you need, and keep them and not lose them, because they learn so much, and they built the processes and systems and methodologies and approaches and the delivery mechanics of what we do. Keeping them, which fortunately we didn't lose anyone in these last 13 months of the pandemic. And then when you do or you need more, is finding them. That's the biggest challenge, is keeping that level of highly skilled individuals with you, and then you can find them to grow, especially when you're based in the Valley.
Yeah.
There isn't an architectural school here,
Right.
like in San Antonio, Houston, or Austin. And then most of these young folks, they want to live in those markets,
Right.
which are very expensive. So the ones that you can attract probably have a family, or they're young or want to have a family. They think that being here is better. So, yeah, that's the biggest challenge.
So as you talked about being, let's kind of backtrack. Let's do this like the Quentin Tarantino way, not going through any specific.
Are we going to say F words?
I mean, if you want to.
Are we going to show our feet?
Is that what Quentin Tarantino
Oh, he
does?
loves feet. He's got a foot fetish.
Wait.
Every film he has, he's got primarily his female characters put their feet up on something in front of the camera. Did you see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yeah.
Okay, the Sharon Tate role, feet up while she's watching herself in the movie. The young hippie that was with Brad Pitt, feet up on top of the dashboard.
Oh, right.
Yeah, every film he's got feet.
Really?
He loves female feet.
I don't remember that in what was that one? The one where, was it the Terrible Seven, or what was that called?
Reservoir Dogs?
No, it was the one where they were cowboys.
Hateful Eight?
Hateful Eight.
Terrible
I don't
Seven.
remember. I don't remember.
Oh my God. Hateful Eight.
I was so close though. I hit 7. It was
What
8.
about the Hateful Eight?
Okay, I don't remember any toes in that.
Well, I don't know about toes. I remember Samuel L. Jackson getting his dick shot at.
Yes, I remember that part.
That was pretty gruesome.
There was definitely not toes in that one.
Yeah, I think there was toes. I think there's a scene in there with toes.
Okay, favorite Quentin, because it sounds like you know Quentin Tarantino
But you're going
movies.
Quentin Tarantino, and I interrupted you. What did you mean by going Quentin Tarantino?
I was just gonna
on me?
say we were gonna go about your life in no particular order, because Quentin Tarantino has
Is she going non-linear on me?
Yes, exactly.
Oh,
Like
okay.
he has a way of just kind of shifting everything, and then at the end it kind of all makes sense. It comes together.
Okay. But you're not going to
Just kind of like life, right?
You're not going to shoot me up.
Yeah, no,
like
no,
what happened
no.
to Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Yeah, no. Yeah, there's always guns in there, and there's always like this comedic way of dying, I think, in every single movie that he does. What's your favorite Quentin Tarantino film?
I love Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, only because I loved 1969. It was
Really?
a big year for me.
Okay, so you like the time, you like the era.
I like the era and the way they were able to replicate and or create that Hollywood era in 1969. I love that movie. I just love the way it was constructed. I love the surprise ending. I was sitting there for 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours, waiting to say, "Oh my God, I'm going to watch Sharon Tate have her baby pulled out of her tummy and get murdered by the Manson people, and then it just spins and twists the other way.
Yeah.
But it was just a great movie, and it's one of the first movies where the hippies were the bad guys. You rarely get to see a movie where the hippies are the bad guys.
Right.
The
hippies are always the good guys.
Yeah,
the peace
they were
lovers
the bad
or
guys
whatever.
in this one.
Yeah.
So that one, and oh God, I love all of them. I love the Kill Bill, the 2 Kill Bills.
Mm-hmm.
I love Django Unchained.
Mm-hmm.
I love all of his movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who cannot have Pulp Fiction in their top 20 list?
I mean, I would say that From Dusk Till Dawn was probably one of the worst ones.
But that's not his movie.
It's not.
No, it's Robert Rodriguez. He directed that movie.
Oh,
Quentin
really?
wrote it.
Oh,
and Quentin's in it.
Oh, that makes sense then. I mean, Salma Hayek was like the saving grace of
Quentin's
that.
done 9 films, and so that's not one of his films. He's written. He won an Academy Award for True Romance.
I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah, that's the one with Christian Slater. But he wrote that one.
Was that pre-Pulp Fiction?
I think it was right after Reservoir Dogs, somewhere in that Reservoir Dogs Pulp Fiction time frame. True Romance.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool film.
I wasn't introduced to Reservoir Dogs until after I watched Pulp Fiction. I was like, okay,
well, you're barely 30.
And was he? Yeah, I wish.
But so we're going non-linear on my life. So you want to go to the time when where I blew somebody away with a machine gun?
I mean, if you want to talk about it, I know there was certain things that you said I don't want to talk about the time about the machine gun.
No,
that's some of the crazy parts.
Non-linear. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I've done
I was hoping you were going to talk about King Kong Godzilla.
I've done a few of these. Oh, we could talk about that too. But I've done a few of these, and one thing that I will say, and I don't know if I've mentioned it on any of the others, but whenever I do this podcast, there are so many stories that come out like after we're not doing this thing that I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be such a good story. So if you don't want to talk about the machine gun part, that's totally okay. We could save that for another podcast. Maybe that'll be an attractor. We'll talk about that later.
I'll tell you about my Willie Nelson story. People love that story, so I'm gonna tell it.
What's the Willie Nelson story?
It's a great story. It's one of those hero moments for me.
Okay, so Willie Nelson, I think, is just like an iconic Texan, right? Like he is a hero. Whoever doesn't love Willie Nelson, I think, doesn't love life, right? I mean, I think he's just amazing.
He is. So it's 1990, and Willie was having problems with the IRS. I think he owed like $16 or $17 million. And so I had an advertising firm that did television production, and one of the things that we did was 800 number product advertising around the country out of Austin. We were one of the biggest firms doing it. And so I heard at the time we had a lot of different products. We were doing 900 telephone lines with major movies, major music iconic people, where you'd pay $1 a minute and you get to listen to stories. So like I interviewed NWA when NWA was fuck the police.
Yeah.
They were at that height.
No way.
Yeah, so I interviewed them. So we had a studio in Austin, and so when they'd come touring, I'd get their agents to give me 3 or 4 hours with them, and I'd sit there and interview them just like this for 3 or 4 hours, and I'd grab all that audio and I'd create 2 to 3 minute clips, and I'd put them on for $1 a minute through a telemarketing group, and we'd split the fee. And so I did Paula Abdul, I did Stevie Wonder, LL Cool J, NW, Warrant.
Why did you never tell me this shit before?
This is just a part of my life. I have many stories I haven't told you. I did Joe Epstein, Elvis Presley's best friend, Salt and Pepper. Salt and Pepper. So I did Willie Nelson. So we did a lot of those celebrities, and from that I created actually a television show that we syndicated in 27 markets called Street Tracks, and it was basically a DJ who would introduce these clips, and so when I had them and I was interviewing them, I would do little opening bits for the show, and so my show got hosted by Stevie Wonder, or my show got hosted by Paula Abdul, and I'd do some kind of deal where they'd make something from it and all that. Anyway,
do you have any of that?
Some of those recordings I have somewhere. I love my favorite NWA story. Now,
these are gems.
Now, just check this out. I'm in the room for 4.5 hours in a recording studio in 1990, 89, 90. NWA just released their biggest album and some of their biggest songs, and they came to play at the rodeo arena under heavy security because they were just pissing cops off everywhere.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, you've seen the movie NWA.
Yeah, of course.
So in the room with me is Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, the original 5 NWA.
You're gotta be kidding me. No way.
Yeah, Lee was
Yeah,
in
yeah,
there,
yeah.
all of them.
Eazy-E, yeah,
all
yeah.
the 5 major NWA guys. And I'm in there, and I'm dressed like this in a shirt, with slacks, and I'm talking to them, and we're just having a good time and talking. So we're kind of wrapping up, and I'm just sitting there going, I was so intimidated when they walked in. I mean, they walked in like they were going to kill me. And thank God I was Hispanic that they didn't, because they right away made a connection.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, again, think about who I was with at the time. This is Dre. This is Ice Cube.
Yeah.
These are the 5 guys.
Yeah.
And so I've got pictures somewhere of these guys with me and them. Anyway, so we're wrapping up.
It's Compton guys.
We're wrapping up, and I said, okay, guys, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about? I mean, I know I've got that audio reel somewhere of that whole conversation.
That's gold.
I know,
Brian.
I know. And so, the Joe Epstein one in a Vegas hotel room, and I'm listening to 5 hours of his life with Elvis, shit that he's never said, shit that probably never made a book, stuff that was amazing about Elvis. He was Elvis's best man at Elvis' wedding with Scylla.
Wow.
Hey, Scylla. I love Scylla.
Right.
Anyway, and so anyway, I said, guys, is there anything you want to add? We were wrapping up, and Ice Cube looks at me, and he goes, yo, dude, I just got to know, those slacks you got on, do they really have that extra band around the waist? And I just, yeah, I think so. And he goes, I wanted to know. I'm thinking about maybe buying some.
Really?
Now, it doesn't mean anything right now in the context, but for me, with these guys, that's the one question he asked me. And he wanted to know about my slacks. So I'm sitting there wondering, how long had he been thinking about my slacks?
Probably since he walked in the door.
Ask me that question, because I was wearing slacks. These guys were dressed like NWA.
Right.
They had a posse outside of the room, probably packing, so nobody bothered us. 5 freaking hours with NWA.
Wow, man.
I don't remember what we talked about, but I know we talked about their life. I know that whatever that film was about them, we talked about that in that room for 5 hours about them. And they were getting along back then. They were like tight. They were like the Beatles of that era of music.
Yeah, because
they were huge.
when that album came out, I mean, that was like transcendent. I mean, they elevated rap.
Yeah.
They elevated that genre of rap just to completely new. I mean, they're like Nirvana for rap. I mean, it was just like this complete new
but
shift.
they didn't think of it as rap. They didn't call it rap. At least not to them. I mean, it was an art form for them. They were expressing themselves, telling stories that people needed to hear, that people didn't hear, about what was going on.
Wow.
In the world. Not their lives. They were talking about what was happening, to African Americans in the United States at that time. Which, by the way, that was 1989-90. Nothing's changed.
Right.
I mean, the stories that they were sharing.
Was that pre-Rodney King?
I don't know. I don't remember when Rodney King was, but yeah, I think so.
I want to say it was like
Rodney
91.
King was like the mid to late 90s.
Yeah, I want to say it was like early 90s. Right?
They were pissed.
So, yeah.
They were angry. But I was with them for 5 hours.
That's awesome.
But back to Willie.
Okay, Willie. Yes, the Willie story.
So Willie had a $16 million debt to the IRS. And so I, had this agency in Austin, and my attorney was also a music agent and knew everybody. So, I could go in anywhere I wanted to at the, the Continental Club, at Armadillos, at wherever I could go in and get front row seats backstage to any act I wanted to because of him. Whoever came in town, I got in and got to see whatever I wanted to see or go backstage. At that time, I think it was about 8 years before that, maybe less. I used to host a little television show on public access in Austin, where artists would come in and I'd bring them in and I'd interview them in their backstage. So I got to interview Chick Corea, Pat Metheny, some of the local guys, and then I'd get tickets to go to the show.
Sweet deal.
Of course, Chick Corea just passed away recently. I don't know if you're a Return to Forever fan or a Pat Metheny fan, but they were huge and are still huge. And so I used to interview mostly jazz artists, and we'd sit and have good discussions.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, he would get me access. And so I said, I called him. I said, Mike, hey, come on over. I want to talk. So he came over by the office and we chatted that afternoon. And I said, hey, man, I'm hearing Willie is going to want to release a CD set. And it was called the IRS tapes. And he was going to do it over TV in 800 numbers to raise money to pay his IRS debt off.
No way.
And he's going to use some group out of Nashville. And I said, I want that contract. I want that freaking contract. It should be here. I'm in Austin. He's here. Get me a meeting with Willie. And he goes, well, I'll see what I can do. A week passes, nothing. 2 weeks pass, nothing. Mike comes by and says, dude, I'm having a real tough time getting a meeting with you and Willie. His schedule's not working. He doesn't know really who you are. Blah, 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 blah. And so 3 weeks pass, nothing happens. Mike comes by the office, sits down. He goes, I don't think we're going to make it happen, dude. I think he's going to go with that group in Nashville. I said, okay, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. What does Willie get for a night? He said, I don't know, maybe 50 grand. I'm going to give you a $10,000 check, and I want 10 minutes with him. And he can keep the money if we don't do the deal, or we put the money against whatever he makes on a deal with his IRS tapes. So I wrote a check. Willie Nelson, $10,000. He takes it. Next morning he calls and says, Willie will take you. He'll meet with you. Cool. When? Like in an hour. So
get out of here.
Yeah. So we head up to Pertinales at his ranch. And
Pertinales.
Yeah, Pertinales, right there, outside Austin, west side Austin.
Yeah.
On the Pertinales River.
Yep.
He's got a place over there with a little golf course and all that. I show up and he's got his touring RV, big old huge mammoth RV. And we walk and we knock, and the door opens and there's Willie. Come on in. Come on in. And so
does he have the braids?
I don't know what he had. Maybe.
Okay.
I can't remember. Unbraided long hair. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
So we sit in the kitchen of this RV, and it's Mike right here. I'm here, and you're Willie right there. And he goes, that was pretty impressive. Paying me $10,000 for 10 minutes. I figure I got to meet the man who did that. He said, what balls? Just like that. That's how it started. And I said, well, I got something to offer you, and I know that you're thinking about hiring this Nashville group.
Were you nervous?
Tapes. No. You're thinking about hiring this group for this Nashville marketing group. We do the same thing here. I know what you want. You want to make a shitload of money, pay off the IRS, and here's my strategy. So I mapped out my strategy, how we could do it. And he's listening. He starts rolling joints right in front of me. Just one, smoke, another one. We were there for 2 hours. Roll, smoke. I'm getting loaded, and he's offering me, and I'm not taking it, but I'm still getting loaded because I'm right here. He's puffing in towards me and around me, and whatever he's smoking is badass. And so we consummated the deal in 2 hours. Shook my hand and said, let's do it. I'm going to hire you guys to do it.
Get out of here.
Yeah. And so we did. So we did 3 TV spots with him, Paul Rodriguez, because he's my buddy, and I called him and said, hey, will you do a spot for Willie? And Chris Christopherson. So we shot commercials with Willie and Chris by himself, Paul and Willie, Paul by himself, Willie by himself. I have a picture of me when Willie brought up at the studio. He went and took a break to his bus, but he left his guitar with it all beat up with a hole in it, and he took his bandana off and laid it right there on the chair. I put the bandana on with the guitar, and I took a picture of myself. I got a picture of that.
Dude, you have to post that on your Facebook. That needs to be on the internet.
After I did that, there were newspaper articles about me winning that project. I mean, Austin made a big deal out of me winning that deal and the story I tell about how I got it.
Man.
Yeah. So he made a shitload of money.
Wow.
Yeah, we both did.
Wow.
Yeah, the IRS tapes. 1990, 91.
Okay, so how did you
You Google that and our story comes up.
Wow. That's crazy, man. I can't believe you've never told me that story.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of stories.
It's a good story, though, isn't it?
It's an amazing story. That's an amazing story. So,
Eli loves that story. He'll sit there. We'll be in front of people, that I don't even know.
You'd be like, tell him the Willie story.
He'll do that. He'd go, Brian, tell him the Willie story. And I go, I don't feel like telling the Willie story.
He's like, no, it's a great story.
Now we have this at a podcast. I can say, dude, go to like 47 minutes in this podcast and tell him, take him to that, and there my story's there.
Yeah, 27 minutes, 22 seconds. That's for the Willie podcast. Wow, man, that's so crazy. Okay, so
what did I learn from that, by the way? You need to ask that question.
Okay, so what did you learn from that, by the way?
You need balls, dude. You need to take risks. That writing that $10,000 checks was a scary moment. I mean, I don't know if I have 10,000. I'm sure I did, but taking 10 grand out of a small agency, knowing whether you may or may not win that.
Mm-hmm. That's balls.
That was a moment.
And that was what year was that?
1990.
1990. So $10,000 in 1990 would be, I don't know,
$140 million.
Yeah, maybe the rate of inflation is not that high, but that's a scary number even in today's, like, hey, 10 minutes, $10,000, $1,000 a minute, pretty much. That's what you got. He's like,
he loved that. He said that's what said, I want to meet the guy that did that. Nobody had ever done that to him before.
Wow. So you got to take risks. Well, what would you say? So I recently heard someone talk about this. Is that success in life is really not necessarily about the knowledge that you have, the experience that you have, which those are all important things. But it's about the decisions that you make in life. Those decisions that you make in life really change your success in life. So that was a huge decision that you had to make there. Like, what would you say are some of those things?
Well, I mean, when these last 13 months, there were many, sometimes more than one in a day, where you had to make decisions like that could impact hundreds of people. I mean, during this pandemic, do we go and get in the car and go do an interview at the height of the pandemic?
Risking your life.
Taking your mask off in front of 12 people in a room that you don't know, in a community that you've never been in. I mean, that may be trivial now, but that was scary. And then be able to hit a home run for 20 minutes in an interview and not have that in your head. Oh shit, I'm going to get COVID. Who are these people? But yeah, it just seems like there were a lot of moments like that in these last 13 months. There were moments of making decisions. I can't specifically say, what was the bigger moment, but there were just, I just remember times like that over the last 13 months. Now, my favorite fork in the road, I like to call them fork in the roads, is making that decision. And I remember one had to do with integrity. I've shared this one before with you. This is the one where it's 1984, 85. We had a marketing and television firm in Austin, and we were becoming nationally known for our work in Austin, out of Austin, because we were in Austin, and we were doing, national commercials, and we were doing programming and television shows, and about that time I'd already done about 50 world title fights, boxing fights, as a director and producer, and I was doing music concerts and big trucks, with multiple cameras and all that stuff. So I had a name rec out there, plus my brother. We were kind of a cool, TD director or director producer team. And so we were always getting called in Texas to go do a fight or go do a sporting event or something like that. So we had a pretty cool thing going on there. So we were really doing some trailblazing stuff with video, and we got a phone call from a group out of Philadelphia that wanted to meet us. And the guy's name, I'm going to make this up because I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Caballero. And he says, we're going to be in Austin, like to meet you. We've heard some things about you. You did a commercial in Philadelphia, and this guy went on and on about you guys and blah, 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 blah. And we know that you guys have national presence, and you know what it is, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, come on by. So next day they're in town, comes to the office, and it's two brothers, and they introduced themselves as the Caballero brothers. And they sat in front of me, and I'm in my room, I'm in my office, and they said, look, we're ready to make this big, huge transformation in the porn world. And I went, Okay.
Oh,
You know,
what?
porn for me was like, you know, where you snuck into a theater where you're in college and you go watch a film, you know, in a small little bad theater that holds maybe 10 people.
Right, it's
You know,
all
I
dark
didn't know
and-
anything about, you know,
Dark and ominous.
porn and retail. I didn't know anything about, other than, you know, the adult video signs you see and all that maybe. And so my head was like, okay, porn. Okay, all right. Why are you
What year is
here?
this?
It's like 1984, 85,
Okay.
somewhere around there. I don't know if you've ever seen Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
But in Boogie Nights, they made that film to video transition in that film where they stopped doing film and they went to video, and then they released and had their own little VHS factory of videos going on.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so because everything was in film and everything was in adult theaters, and you know, and so they wanted to reach the masses, so they went to VHS. Anyway, that's what these guys wanted to do, and so they said, "Look, we want to see if you'd be interested in being our distribution and be able to either produce videos, be able to duplicate videos, and maybe help us distribute videos, and blah blah blah. Would you like to be in business with us?" And I'm sitting there going, "What? You know, who are you again?" And so they told their story, and they left after an hour, hour and a half. And so immediately I started making phone calls. Caballero guys, I started, you know, you didn't have Google back then.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have the internet. You had to get on a phone and start calling people.
Figuring out who these people
who
were.
are these guys? And I found out this is like they're one of the biggest freaking porn production groups in the country. And they came to see me, and they wanted me to be a
shit.
partner, and actually get into the porn world, and you know, not you know, to star in it. It wasn't like that.
Right.
It was to be on the mechanical side and the logistics side of being able to mass produce.
Right.
And
The guy
et
behind
cetera.
the curtain.
Yeah,
So to
yeah.
speak.
Whatever. I mean, it was to get into the distribution. I think at that time we were starting to get more national with videos and stuff like that, and doing things like that. Anyway, so I was like, oh my God, man.
Okay,
And-
wait.
And they were rattling a lot of big numbers at me in terms of dollars.
Like crazy numbers that you've never even like fathomed before.
Yeah.
How old were you in 1984?
I was 31.
Wow. Okay.
I was doing well for myself, but you know, we're talking about, you know, they were acting and talking like I was going to be a millionaire with our group. And so, excited. Wow. Oh my God. Went home, shared the news. And then I started getting very reflective. Started thinking, well, let's see. And I just used would my mother be proud of me? I started thinking about, oh, my family. Oh, I'm in porn. I'm doing porn. And, you know, porn had a weird stigma back then. And so, you know, that's when Hustler and Larry Flint was coming out against Playboy, and all that stuff was really out there. The evangelical world was getting kind of nuts about it, and Larry Flint was being sued, and it was all that crazy stuff. But millions. And so I thought about it, and the next morning they were in town, we met, and I turned them down.
Wow.
It was a moment of integrity, a moment of purity. You know, could I live with myself? Is it really about the money? Is this what I want to be remembered for? I just,
That's a hard choice.
it was real hard. And, you know, a lot of that in life we deal with all the time. Sometimes you don't even realize you're making a choice like that. It's just so quick you're making a choice, and then you don't realize that you had that kind of impact in that choice you made. Another example is, I'll never forget, you know, one day I called an old friend of mine that I hadn't talked to in Austin, and she was she's probably, the last time I spoke to her, she's probably well into her 60s. But in 1976, 77, she came to Lubbock when I was living in Lubbock, and her parents lived next door, and she just finished college, and she came in to visit, and she just stayed in the house and never came out wrapped in a blanket. But I'd known her for 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 or 5 years. And so every day I'd go see her, and we'd talk and we'd talk and we'd talk and we'd visit and talk. And I could never get her out of the house. She just wanted to stay there. So now fast forward to around 1998, maybe 2001. I don't know when it was. I reached out to her and said, hey, how's you been? I hadn't talked to you in a while. I'm going to be in Austin. You want to get together and all this? She's an old friend. And then I said something where I said, oh, God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that. And she goes, Brian, you can say whatever you want to say to me. You don't understand the relationship that I have with you. You don't understand the love I have with you. And I was like, wow, why is she saying that? So I asked her, you know, I know we've been great friends and all that. No. You saved my life. Do you remember in 1975 in Lubbock when I came to visit my folks and you saw me every day? You know, do you remember that? I go, oh, yeah. Yeah, we spent like 2 weeks together, a lot, talking. I came back home to kill myself, and you saved my life. And I live today because of you. Those are the moments that you don't know about.
Whoa.
That you have.
Whoa.
Yeah, that really moved me and touched me.
Yeah.
The way she said it, you saved my life.
And you didn't even know? Not even.
Dude, I was 22. You know, I mean, I wasn't in the business of saving people's lives, much less being a psychologist or a therapist. I was just listening and letting her talk. And I'd go, and I just would be her friend. And you just wonder how many of those have happened to you, even recently during this pandemic. Those are the ones that what do they call about those? Those unheralded, those heroes that don't realize they were a hero. You know,
until
that we go through until maybe later they find out.
Right.
Yeah. Those are the kind of moments that I hope that I've been able to do, but not sure if I've done or not.
Are there any points in your life where you're like, you know, if I hadn't done this or if I hadn't been here, this wouldn't have happened?
Yeah.
Are there anyone? Are there?
Well, yeah.
Are there
My
any?
father died when he was 48, and my brothers were in their early teens, 10, 12, and 14, and my sister was just about ready to leave high school. And I stopped my college years and stopped my career path in television and moved back home to help my mother raise them for 2 years.
Wow.
I literally slept on a mattress in the den so that I could be with my brothers and my sister because my mother just lost it when my dad died.
Wow.
Just lost it.
What happened?
He just died in the middle of his sleep.
Wow.
And didn't have his shit together. Insurance, you know, he was a lawyer, but he just didn't have, you know, it's one of those things, I'll get to it. And passed away.
Didn't get to it. Wow.
And so, yeah, so I had to go to PTA meetings. I had to be sure that their birthdays were taken care of. I took them to wrestling shows, which was fun. Thank God I had a girlfriend who loved wrestling because they loved wrestling. I took them to their first concert to see Kiss in 1976, and when Kiss was just coming out in Lubbock. Best freaking concert I've ever been to in my life, and I've been to hundreds.
1970. I know you've been to hundreds because you've told me about some
1976. I took my kid brothers to go see Kiss.
How old were they?
My brothers?
Yeah.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Wow. That's transcendent, I think. You know, like my daughter doesn't know this yet, but I'm going to take her to a big concert this summer. I wanted to take her to one last summer, but she's 13 years old, and I just feel like when you go to a concert, like a good concert, it's just like, I mean, that's one of those things that you remember forever.
Kiss. That was one of those. 1975 Memorial Day, UT Memorial Stadium. Bad Company opens with Jimmy Page on guitar. Joe Cocker comes out next, drunk as shit. Santana comes out with 5 encores. ZZ Top closes with 7 encores.
7 encores.
70,000 people, and the food and the water and the entire infrastructure system in that stadium quit by 3 o'clock that afternoon.
Jeez.
That was a transcending moment in terms of a concert.
Wow.
That was amazing.
That sounds like a festival.
Yeah.
I mean, like the amount of time.
Labor Day. Last time that they would allow a concert with people on the floor because they tore up that damn turf. They burned mattresses and stuff.
Oh,
but
my gosh.
That lineup, dude. Bad
Crazy.
Company with Jimmy Page. for
Oh.
at least 4 or 5 songs. Because Led Zeppelin had just signed Bad Company with their new label. Mm-hmm. And then Joe Cocker, man, he threw up on the stage. But he gave a hell of a performance. And then Santana in 1975, after 3 albums, and they came out they played almost their entire Woodstock set up there. And then ZZ Top it was ZZ Top's, I don't know if you ever seen the poster. It's right there by my desk. Mm-hmm. The concert poster. I bought an actual legitimate concert poster, and I put it up there and I framed it because that may be the most amazing concert I've ever been to.
Really?
Yeah. And there was so much dope floating around. I
bet.
mean, people couldn't eat, couldn't drink, but there was plenty of dope
Jeez.
floating around. And we were fortunate to be under the upper stands on the west side of the stadium.
Where was
it was
this?
Shaded at UT Memorial in Austin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And that concert started at noon and it ended at 2 a.m.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's a concert?
Yeah, it was just a festival. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty badass.
I think Led Zeppelin has the best, by far, like the best riffs.
They're my favorite.
Man.
Number one. And unfortunately, I grew up in Houston in 1970. And so acts that I could have seen that I didn't go see because I was right at the cusp of having a car, but not really yet, and having my independence, but not really because I was a junior in high school. Mm-hmm. But, Led Zeppelin, The Who, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, all those bands coming, just coming through Houston, and I missed them all. Didn't get to see them. So those are some of the regretful. I got to see The Who later, after Moon died. I didn't get to see him with Moon, but Led Zeppelin and Santana are my 2 favorite bands.
Yeah. I mean, Led Zeppelin's just got,
Santana I've seen 6 times. I saw Santana in 1971 in Lubbock with Weather Report, the jazz band Weather Report opening for them, and Weather Report was booed from the stage because all the Hispanics wanted to come hear Oye Como Va, Evil Ways, Soul Sacrifice, Black Magic Woman, and then there's Carlos Santana. He's in his whole transcendental state that he was going through in music. He's off to the side, just mesmerized by Weather Report, and we were like, my brother and I were just sitting there. We'd never heard music like that before.
Wow.
That kind of, that beautiful jazz fusion, and then that turned us into jazz nuts after that.
It's awesome. I love jazz.
Well, Carlos Santana, because if you go through the Carlos Santana discography, right after the 3rd album, and he just starts getting into these different kinds of music genres, mostly Brazilian jazz or jazz. So those players that played with him had their albums, so we'd follow them. And so we just got introduced to all that world, which henceforth I had my jazz show in Austin in the 80s.
Man, that's awesome. It was just
I want to share something with you.
Okay.
So this pandemic and coming out of the pandemic has taught me about the powerful significance and importance of living in the moment. 1993, I turned 40. And my brother, who passed away 2 years in the next week. As for my 40th birthday, I was in a state of flux in my life. I wasn't sure where I wanted to go next. So he bought me
40 years old.
40 years old. I just turned 40. He bought me a 3-day seminar with a group called Landmark, which are the former Transcendental Meditation California, feel good group, and it's a 3-day seminar where you get self-reflective about who you are and where you want to go. And I learned the power of living in the moment. And the old saying about the present is a gift. That's why they call it the present.
Right.
And clear up and clean up your past and get closure on everything, because your life is not filled with integrity unless you have baggage still. So you got to just say goodbye to the past. In some cases, you have to literally get closure with individuals. But more importantly, there's things that you just carry on that you just don't want to deal with, but it's there and it gets in the way. The old pointing of the finger,
right?
Blaming somebody, but there's 3 fingers pointing this way at you.
So, I've never heard that.
Yeah, so that whole reflective moment of living in the moment and the power of the present, and to know that if you're going to move forward, you have to understand that future, you design it. You design that future.
You are the creator of your.
Well, not so much the master of my domain, but more about. And I think it's why I'm so good at strategic planning. It's why everything that's happening today, during the pandemic, in the middle and the height of the July period, that was so devastating. So many deaths, so many family members and extended family members, and many of my staff, and watching and having to listen to their family members and extended family or outside their families that passed away. I started creating a path for our company coming out of this sometime after the new year in 21. And so there are things happening that I can't share about, but there are things that are happening that are going in the direction that I was hoping that it would happen. And that moment, living in the moment, is very powerful. And so what I want to say is that there isn't a better time, there isn't a better moment than the moment that I'm experiencing today. Now, that moment of reflection and that wonderfulness, I have to attribute to my wife and my children. Because, again, one of the silver linings of the pandemic was being home and being home with those who you love and the trust that you build and the friendships that you rekindle and the relationships that you rebuild or the relationships that you build on all happened because of quarantine. And so it was wonderful for us. Yeah, there were moments where I could have killed her or killed them, or they could have killed me and kill each other. But there were much more moments of wonderful and grateful times, but living in that moment. And so the point I'm making is that there isn't a better time than the time that we're having right now. Like right now, this moment with you, I've had the best time I've had that I can remember, just being in the last hour with you. Yeah, just being able to share and talk. I mean, I've missed you terribly.
Yeah.
I haven't been with you in a long time.
A long time.
Yeah. And the fact that you've created this forum for us to sit back and chill and talk about things and reflect on things, this is a great moment. And there may be something that'll maybe transcend or transpire from this moment for you and me. Jerry, you know me well enough, and I know you well enough, that every time we get together, something ends up happening after that.
Right.
We end up doing something.
Right. Something comes out of it.
Yeah, something organically just transpires out of it that we think about, and all of a sudden something comes out of it. I look at every relationship and conversation like that. I know that if I have a lunch, or if I have a dinner, or if I get together with some folks, or we just hook up, I know, I'm choking on your peanuts. I know that
doesn't sound good.
I know that something's going to come out of it that's going to have some relationship to my future. And I know that it's something that I end up designing, that I end up creating. So I wanted to share that with you.
So, life by design. There's a recent quote that I've really kind of attached myself to, and it's a quote by Abraham Lincoln that says, "The best way to predict your future is to create it." And so, how much of your life and your success has been what you've created versus how much of it has been luck?
Much of it. Because as much as you want to create and as much as you want to plan, you're always going to have a bump. You're always going to have a detour. You're always going to have something that you just, you hit that brick wall. And for me, I never stop. I don't go around it. I don't go above it. I don't try to dig something underneath it. I always go through it. And so nothing really scares me. Now, was I like that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? No. I think as I've gotten older, I'm in the third act of my life right now. I just know that I just don't take things as seriously. I don't take things as a critical step that I have to think about. No, I just do, and I just move. And so, yeah. So
the third act of your life or the third act of your career?
No, the third act of my life. There's three acts that if you've ever read anything about that,
plays,
it's like 0 to 30,
musicals.
30 to 60, 60 to 90. So I'm in that early part of my third act. And so I want to have some sense of accomplishment. I want to be able to leave something behind. I want to create a legacy with my family, with my children, and the work that I do. I know that there was no accident in meeting Eli. There was no accident in the creation of the company that we did together and the partners that I have now, because we are actually designing and building and being involved in facilities and structures that are having a huge impact in communities that we serve. There's no accident for that. That just wasn't by chance. We designed that together.
So, do you think that life is predetermined, or do you think that life is what you make it? Do you think life is choice?
I think it's choice. You know the old saying, or you've heard about how when you raise your children, they didn't make mistakes, they just made poor choices. And there's empowerment in that, if you believe that. I think that applies to us as adults. I mean, come on, Jerry. We just got done with the craziest 4 years of our lives under the administration that just left, under a Congress that just transformed, under a pandemic with everything that was going on in the world. I think a lot of people made a lot of choices. Some were poor and some were good. You know, as simple as the choice of wearing a mask.
Yeah.
As simple as that choice was, that had huge impacts for them, their families, and our communities. So yeah, I think that life is by choices, and you have to live with that choice you make.
So there's no destiny. There's no, because you just mentioned I was meant to meet Eli. No?
Did I say that? Well, I think I was.
And
I think
not verbatim.
Maybe I didn't
but,
mean it like that. I think I was ready to meet Eli.
Okay.
I don't think I don't think there was a destiny that
It's not
I was
like
meant to meet him.
It's not like to.
Well, maybe, but I believe that I was ready to meet him. It was I owe Eli a lot.
Eli's a good man.
Well, yeah,
He's a great man.
My whole career over the last 15 years is built around that first lunch we had at the country club when he invited me over for lunch, and we have done some amazing things together.
Yeah, I mean, certainly a lot of buildings that you have are going to live way beyond your years.
Well, the communities that we help build from those buildings. I mean, think about it, Jerry. Whether it's an elementary school, a middle school, or a high school, think about the impact that has on thousands of children and families in terms of their education and their career paths that they develop from there. Or at least I want to believe that has that impact.
Absolutely is. I mean, when you think about even old buildings that have character, I mean, buildings end up becoming museums end up becoming a component of history that people can go back and look at and reflect on. And who's to say that any of the buildings that you build today won't be any of those historic milestones of tomorrow?
Well, the new courthouse.
That's a
7-story,
perfect
450,000 square foot, huge building. When you drive by there, you can see it from the freeway.
Right. From what it was, which was, how big was it?
Built in 1954, maybe 110,000 square feet, 3 stories, could only do 6 courts. This building has 36 courts. And what's really cool, I don't know if you've seen it, but on the north side face of the building, on the glass, is the etching that we put in there of the county seal. And it, it's like, 3 stories tall.
It's amazing.
It's really cool. And then the way Eli designed the exterior with the glazing around the building, specifically in the front and the sides, every angle of the sun creates a different color perspective and a different look for the building from the time the sun rises to the time the sun sets.
Oh, it's amazing.
That was intentional. That was on purpose. That wasn't an accident.
Wow. So, going back, looking back at your life, all of the things that you've done, it sounds to me like everything that you've done has been by design.
Well, I would say in the last 20 to 30 years, probably more of that than the first 20 to 30 years. Because, you're just a dumb kid or a young adult.
Kind of just trying to kind of roll through life.
Well, life hit me really hard between the eyes when my dad died when I was 23 years old. So that was a big awakening. So, yeah, life changed. Life life went a different path.
Right. You were reactive more than proactive at that point.
Yeah, that was a very reactive moment for me to have to make some decisions about some selfless decisions about what I was going to do with my life for a while. I had brothers and my sister and my mother that needed caring for, and we need to regroup as a family to be sure we didn't fall apart and stick together. So that was one of those defining moments. There have been others like that.
What would you say out of all of the successes that you've had? Because we haven't even really scratched the surface. I mean, I've heard some other stories that you've told me in the past about just crazy stuff. How much of your success has been based off of luck versus how much has been based off of design?
Oh boy, that's hard to say. Luck is, to me, is just being at the right place at the right time,
Right.
and then seizing that opportunity and then doing something with it. So I would have to say that it was more by design, because you're at that fork when you have that happening at the right place at the right time. Do you have the ability to accomplish? Do you have the ability to execute? Do you have the ability to pull it off? Do you have the cojones to be able to write a $10,000 check and see Willie?
Yeah.
And then make something out of that, knowing already in your head what you want to do. I just about every conversation that I have that relates to business, but sometimes even just kind of hanging around, I have a sense of direction where I want to go. I have a pretty good idea, and I don't want to dominate. I don't want to overpower. I don't want to have it be my way. But I kind of have the ability, maybe it's a gift that I have, is to at least be around either an individual or a group where I can hopefully shift a conversation where I think it might be good for everyone, not just me, but for everyone. But I got to be sure that everybody's part of it. If it's just me doing it because it's just for me, forget it. It ain't gonna work.
Right.
So
you gotta think about the whole.
yeah, I do. And so maybe it's a gift. Maybe it's because I'm old enough to be able and wise enough to be able to do that. Could I do it 30 years ago? Maybe differently. Maybe back then I had to do it with money.
Was there a transcendent point that you can look back on and say, like, man, my thoughts or my perspective on life really changed at this point? Because like you mentioned,
First time I had sex. That was a transcending moment. My life changed, and all of a sudden I went, oh my God, I didn't realize that you could do that. I didn't realize that you could have that ability to do that. But that was a transcending moment. I mean, that changed me from who I was to who I might become, and my relationship with women and all of that. The first time you have sex.
Okay, so you were
I think I was 20.
20.
Maybe 21. I started a little late. I bloomed a little late.
You were a late bloomer.
It was a weird time, dude. I went to a Procol Harum concert with the Byrds opening.
Procol Harum?
Procol Harum.
What's that?
Oh, you don't remember the song? Robin Trower was the guitarist, great guitarist. What was their song? Procol Harum's big song about White Rabbit. I can't remember the name of the song. But anyway, they were huge. It's 1974, 73, no, 72. 72, Lubbock, Procol Harum, and the Byrds. David Crosby, not David Crosby, Graham Nash, the Byrds, dude. Procol Harum. Come on, don't age yourself.
No. I'm aware.
Anyway, Procol Harum was big back then. And it was Lubbock, and I took this girl out, on a date, and so it was. I think it was my birthday. And so it was.
Congratulations!
I had my cool Camaro, and we went to this concert.
Wait! You got a Camaro?
Oh, I had a 1972 gold Camaro. My dad gave it to me for a graduation from high school in 1971.
Sweet.
It's a badass car. I have a great picture of me in that car. It was wonderful. Anyway, so go to the concert. Have a great time, and
Chick
later,
magnet.
hey. We kissed in the parking lot, and we said, do you want to go somewhere? And she says, I know a spot. So I knew, oh my God, I'm with somebody experienced. This girl is experienced. So we went to a place outside of town near where they were building the new mall, and we parked in this cornfield or cotton field or something in my Camaro, and one thing led to the next, and I had sex for the first time that night.
Were you scared?
It's interesting how instincts kind of took over, so we're sitting there and we're just, naked in the front seat area, just consummated the deal. I'm in love. I mean, this is my future ex-wife. You know, I'm happy.
Oh, this is your future ex-wife.
No, but I mean,
this
it's my
is
first
in
time,
your mind.
dude. I'm in love with
Yes.
this woman.
Okay.
I'm in love with this woman. She was experienced. I just put it that way. Anyway, and so, you know, about an hour later, you know, we're both naked.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
What the hell is that? And all of a sudden, flashlights. Come on. And it's the freaking sheriff's department.
No shit.
Yes. And they're going, hey, what are y'all doing in there?
Apparently they knew that same place.
The flashlights were not on me. They were on her.
Oh.
She's naked. I'm naked. And we're quickly trying to get our clothes on. Get out of that car right now. Especially you talking to her, not me. She was gorgeous. Drop dead gorgeous. Anyway,
my gosh.
So we get out of the car. We get our clothes on as quickly as we can, get out of the car. This is my night of the, you know, my first night, my first time, and this is what I'm experiencing. I'm outside the car, about to go to jail, and these guys were just being, you know, assholes. You know, we didn't do anything wrong, but, you know, they wanted to have some kicks with her and me.
Oh,
and so you know, they messed with us for a while, you know, and they let us go. We get back in the car, and we're like, oh, this kind of sucks. This really just kind of down to a great evening. And she goes, well, we don't have to leave. And I go, well, we don't. They're gone. Part 2.
Second act.
Second act, man. So that was a transcending moment, because your whole life changes like that. So you have your thing, a natural, beautiful experience of sex. And then all of a sudden, the moral issue of the cops show up. And now all of a sudden, from good and beautiful to bad and dirty.
Yeah.
You know, so my head's
you were
spinning.
sharing a moment, and then all of a sudden it's like, what are you doing?
Exactly. And so, you know, and so you have two different perspectives of a beautiful moment that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. Of course, here we are, you know, 2021, and I'm sharing it on a podcast, you know, but yeah, that was I kind of surprised you on that moment to reflect on a transcendent moment.
That's all good, man. I mean, you know, life is made up of a lot of transcendent moments, is what I think, you know, and
what do you do with them?
What do you do with them? That's a very good.
What do you do with them? Do you learn? You know, do you build on them? Do you leverage them? Do you create something with them?
Do you reflect
or do you
on
just
them?
completely be an idiot like you've done many times, like I have, and just go, well, there was a moment. That was pretty bad.
Well,
I got to move on to something else.
That was some shit.
I'm not learning anything from that. I'm moving on to the next thing.
That was crazy.
Somebody pass the burger and fries, man. I'm moving on. Sometimes we do stupid things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they're all memorable moments, and they're all noteworthy moments.
Oh, yeah.
Right? What you do with them, that's up to you.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've got a pretty crazy story. Like, we're only really scratching
Well, you have to
the
remember that
surface.
everything I do is transactional. So in the world that you and I live in, you too, is everything is about transacting a business. You got to remember that marketing is about a transaction. You shake hands and agree that I'm going to give you something and I'm going to give you something back, and there's going to be a transaction. I'll do a service for you, you know, and et cetera, et cetera. So everything is transactional. So everything in my life, everything that I've done, everything that I've learned, from my career in television to advertising to technology to public relations to infrastructure and architecture, have all been transactional based. Everything has this, the weaving common thread is marketing. And what I've learned about marketing is it's relationships, and it's about having someone say yes to something that you want them to do. And how you get them to do that is the strategy. It's what you do to convince someone to say yes. So you live that moment all the time. What's interesting is that it goes beyond our business. Our home is full of transactions on a daily basis.
Right.
Our community is all based on transactions. Everything we do involves a story. So I learned early on that it's all about communications and how you speak and what you say and the story you tell to either convince someone to do something or for you two to do something together, be a part of something. I mean, look, remember, when you proposed to your wife, it was a transaction. You were looking for a yes. When you decide to have children, you both agreed to a yes when you bought your house. So everything is about transaction. So I learned that all of life is built around a transaction of offering and taking and giving. You remember the old Beatles song, "The love you make is greater than the love you take"?
Yeah.
It's all about that. And everything is built around love and transaction. This whole time you and I have been together, we've been transacting a sense of love together, and sharing stories and sharing wonderful things about that. So that's what I've learned. That transaction component, all built around marketing, has been the common thread in my career from different aspects of the careers that I've done. So when I learned to harness the power of transaction in storytelling, I was able to be successful in what I've built since then and the things that I've built.
So really understanding both of those kind of aspects of life and combining them together has really kind of helped you.
Storytelling, having the ability to be strategic in that action, but it just comes down to just being able to communicate and be clear and not be threatening. Having a sense of attraction. Having some sense of commonality. Not be overpowering, not making someone feel bad or talking down or just. I've learned that. I probably wasn't like this 30 years ago. I was probably more aggressive, not as confident, more pushy, wanting to do it my way as opposed to their way. You just learn that as you just get older and older, and you realize, what's really important.
There's a lot of creativity behind the ability to explain things properly. There's a lot of there's a lot of that in the ability to be able to tell your story and to tell it well. And a lot of these things that you talk about, they sound easy in a sense, but really you're drawing from all of these experiences.
Like when you're driving in a Camaro from Boys Town to Reynosa to get back home, and being able to tell a good story.
There's a life lesson in that. Somewhere
like
in
staying
there.
cool and calm.
Right. I mean, but what I'm saying is like you're drawing from all of these different experiences, and whether they're personal experiences or professional experiences, there is an art form in the way that you tell this story, whether it's to a board, whether it's to, a client or, you're pitching somebody or
just to your family or just being with your family. I mean, look, when you're in a quarantine environment, as we have for the months that we have, and you're confined to a square footage space and all around you is just your wife or your husband or your children or your mother, maybe 4, 5, maybe 2 or 3, whatever it is, every day, 24/7, a lot of stories are being told back and forth.
For sure.
And there's a lot of transactions going on back and forth. Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I mean, I think when you master that ability and you realize that it just comes down to story and it comes down to that transactional mode of either giving or taking and having that enrollment where you're together, I think that's where that transcend moments that you were talking about occur. And then that opportunity comes out and blossoms, and then something great happens.
Yeah, something new happens.
As simple as what a wonderful dinner we had to as great as look at this business we've built.
Right.
And everything in between.
Yeah, and all of those little moments.
Remember, Jerry, we met, about 8 years ago?
Long time ago.
Okay, so let's just say for this conversation, it was roughly about 2013.
Yeah, I was going to say 2013.
Okay, so Jerry and Brian, 2013-2021. What matters is the dash. Everything you and I have done in that dash is what matters.
Right.
So like when I die and when I'm at that memorial laying up there and I have my friends and family there, I'm hoping that people talk about the dash. And those dash moments are going to be amazing.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping. And that because there was some impact made that, I know, or at least I feel wonderful. And I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but the story that I shared about my friend who said, I was going to kill myself and you saved my life. I have a feeling I have a lot of those that I don't know about. Because I've led many businesses. I've led many ventures. I've been involved in many community events. I've led community events from being on a board or leading one from a community engagement standpoint, or being part of a board back in the 80s when I used to be on the television access, and then the cable board in Austin in the 70s and 80s. I know that there are many of those moments that I've had with people that I'm sure that if I asked, I might find out, but I bet you do too. I think we all do.
Right. And, I mean, this is kind of off the...
We're being very reflective right now.
Right, yeah. So, as a matter of fact...
You want to go back to sex?
No. What I was going to say is, so this morning, for some random reason, I had looked up, top NBA scorers for the year. And so when I looked up those stats, it talked about all of the top NBA scorers. But one of the other stats that was on there was assists. And assists are a big piece of people who score all of these points, right? Like they're able to assist in all of those things. And that is kind of one of those secondary stats that's important, but not necessarily 100% recognized as important as the top scorers. And
like Tiger Woods, who's had 82 wins, but he's had more seconds and thirds to get to 82 wins.
Right. Or like if those 82 wins, 60 of those wins were done by his first caddy versus the other 22 wins that were done by a second caddy.
Right.
And so where does that caddy, that caddy, you're talking about Tiger Woods, but who got him there, right? Or who helped him to get there?
Right.
I think that there's a lot of those things. And
who helped you?
Well, you're one of them, which is what I'm getting to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you. Excuse me.
Which is what I'm getting to, in that one of the things that I've noticed about you, not just with me, but with other people, is that you are a connector. You are a person who has been able to succeed in many different aspects of your life, but it hasn't been just about you. You've also helped other people succeed in life by the things that you've been able to assist with. And those assists go unrecognized because nobody's keeping stats on that. So to your point, what I was going to say is that I'm kind of picking up what you're putting down, in that I can recognize that a lot of the successes that personally that I've had, and I'll just say this, is been in large part to some of those assists that you've had in helping me grow my own business, or helping others being able to succeed in life, which sometimes go unnoticed, but are definitely not unrecognized in the long run. So I think that that's kind of putting it in other terms or other references where, yeah, man, you've really helped a lot of people. You've connected me to a lot of people that I otherwise would have probably not known if it hadn't been for you. So, yeah, I mean, I would say that so far from what it sounds like, you're living your best life.
At this moment.
And enjoying
this moment.
At this moment in time, you are living your best life. You are enjoying the moment. You are living life by design, and you're doing the best that you can with what you have, and you're helping people get to where they are just because you can do it, not because you have to do it.
Thank you, Jerry.
So I appreciate your time, man.
You're welcome.
This has been good.
It has. I've enjoyed it more because I haven't caught up with you in a while.
Yeah.
We haven't been together, and had our weekly, sometimes even daily chats.
Yes, our daily chats. Yeah, I definitely missed those.
Catch-up.
Yeah, and who knows what's to come in the future, but it's definitely been a great ride so far, man. So I'm looking forward to what happens next.
I do too.
So cheers, my friend. Appreciate you.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I appreciate you greatly as well. This is wonderful, and this has been a wonderful time. Thank you for allowing me to reflect my life and, the things that I sometimes don't stop and and think about. You know, I mean, this is a great show and a great podcast that you're doing, and allowing people to do this.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I appreciate you.
And can we acknowledge Hector?
Yeah, dude. Hector is the guy that never gets recognized in any of these podcasts.
And he's got quite a few assists for you.
Oh man, talk about the John Stockton of all assists. That guy right there.
Well, I think of him more like Scottie Pippen.
You think Scott? Oh yeah,
For Michael Jordan.
Scottie Pippen.
Yeah,
for
I put
sure.
you like more like Michael Jordan. He'd
Well,
be the
I'm
Scottie
just
Pippen.
saying John Stockton because John Stockton is the #1 NBA assist person of all time.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then you
that's
got number
why.
one.
That's
Hector.
why I recognize Hector as the John Stockton. Anyway, thank you, Hector. You're amazing.
Can I just say that, you know, Leanne is the leading assist in my life.
Yeah,
I just have to acknowledge my wife, my beautiful wife.
Hey, Leanne. Oh my gosh, she's amazing. She is such a cool chick.
Yeah. And now add Christina with her. So I've got double trouble here.
Nice. Well, great stuff, man. Thank you so much.
And go Nick. Nick's doing well. He's almost done with college.
Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. 22, 19. And you're gonna go to ACL, the next ACL with Leanne.
I don't know. I'm just not a big ACL fan.
I think you all should do it as family.
100,000 people. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll
You
see.
got some great concert stories. Maybe you can create another one.
I do.
Okay. Good deal. Thanks,
All right,
man.
buddy.